If you're listening to this episode when it's released, we're about 6 weeks away from the new year. I love everything about this time. Wrapping up a year, reflecting on things that have gone well or maybe haven't, and setting goals for another year. I think now is the perfect time to get things in order. Don't wait for a new year to start. Start now. If better money management is on your New Year's resolution list, what better time than now to begin? In this episode, I'm sharing some money systems to set up before the year ends. Make it a point to implement these money systems in preparation for a new year so this next year can be your best one yet. Hey there, I'm Raya Reeves, and over a decade ago, I turned my life around through budgeting. I went from being an overspender deep in credit card debt to being the founder and full-time money coach of City Girl Savings. Now, I help women work towards their dream life and tap into their financial power one budget at a time. I fully believe you can live a life you love with a budget, and I'm living proof. The weekly City Girl Savings podcast focuses on the intersection of money and the City Girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. Now, when I use the term money system, I am referring to a specific process for your money. This should be a regular routine and may or may not include the help of software, applications, or a coach. Each of the money systems I'm going to share impact some of the most important financial aspects of all of our lives. And the sooner we get these systems in place, the better off financially our future selves will be. So let's dive in. The first money system to set up now, and when I say now, I mean as soon as possible, is a budgeting system. You probably knew I was going to say this, but it is important. It is number one for a reason. A budget is truly the most important tool for financial success. It is the one thing we all need, no matter how much, how little, whatever our financial situations look like, we all need a budget. And that's because without a budget, you don't know what should be happening. You might have numbers in your head, things in your head, ideas in your head, bills in your head, but until you get all of that out on paper or a spreadsheet or whatever, get a budget in place, you don't really know what should be happening or what could be happening with your money. You don't know that you actually should not be getting your hair done every single week. You don't know that you actually shouldn't be putting $600 a month into savings because it means you can't pay a bill. You don't know any of that because you don't have a budget. So a budget is a must-have, and a budgeting system is absolutely something we could all leverage and thrive from. So, what should your budgeting system include? Well, first, it should include a plan for your money. So, this is your actual budget. And ideally, you would want to set this up at the start of a new month, right? So, on the last day of any given month, I create my budget for the next month. I set out what I will be getting in terms of income, and then I set out what I should be spending in terms of expenses and other things. So if I know I'm bringing in $10,000 a month, $10,000 is allocated to all of my budget categories. And I do that at the start of the month. So that's one aspect of your budgeting system. Once you have that laid out and you know, this is what should be happening with my money this month, your next part of the budgeting system is an actual picture of what's happening with your money. And what this looks like is tracking your spending throughout the month. So making sure that you are actually sticking to the budget that you set at the beginning of the month. There is no way to know if the budget is working or if you're sticking to it if you're not tracking your spending. Now, this is where an app or software can make a difference, or you can manually track yourself. That's what I do. That's what I help my clients do, just so we know exactly what is always happening with our money. So that's the second part of your budgeting system. The final part of your budgeting system is a recap of your money for the month. And obviously, we can only do this at the end of the month. So for me, it's the last day of the month. I look at all of my spending, everything that happened in the month, and ask myself, did everything go according to plan? Did I make as much as planned? Did I save as much as planned? And I use that information to help me as I make the next month's budget. So, when you are setting up your budgeting system, obviously you'll want to set up your budget. You'll also want to put 2 dates on your calendar so you don't forget. Put the date on the calendar that you will set up your budget for the month. So, again, I leverage the last day of the month. And then this could be the exact same date, but put a date on your calendar where you do a month end review of the budget. Now, this might not be the very last day. It may be the next day or two, just in case you're waiting on some transactions or whatever the case may be. But the point is to have these dates in your calendar so that you don't have to remember to do it. And if you want to take it up a notch, add weekly tracking dates. And even more frequently than weekly is better, but hey, weekly is just fine. Like weekly dates on the calendar to track your spending, make sure you're sticking to your budget. That is a fantastic starting point for your budgeting system. The next money system to set up before the year ends is a saving system. Now, if you don't currently have a savings or you have a problem actually keeping money in savings, you'll definitely want to set up a saving system. So I think we can approach this two ways. If you are saving money when you have debt, or if you are saving money when you don't have debt. So let's talk about saving money with debt or having a saving system when you have debt. What you'll want to do is determine an amount to save before you aggressively tackle your debt. So this could be $1,000, which is pretty common. It could be 1 month's worth of expenses or any other number that works for you. The goal is to have this amount saved, whatever that number is, before you start putting all of your energy into paying off debt. And the reason for this is because if you avoid this step, skip this step, you don't have anything saved, but you're putting all your money towards debt. If something unexpected were to come up and you don't have a savings, you're likely going to go back into debt to cover that thing. And we want to avoid that. Plus, there's a little bit of peace of mind of knowing you have like an actual savings, cash and savings to help you. And then you can go aggressively tackle your debt. So that's why you would want to do this. And then once you decide on that amount that you need to save before aggressively tackling your debt, I want you to open up a high yield savings account. So a high yield savings account functions like a regular savings account. The only difference is they pay out higher in interest and they are through like an online bank. So Ally, Synchrony, SoFi, Discover, there are a lot of options, but you'll want to put your money there because you're going to get more in interest first and foremost. But second, these types of accounts typically aren't instantly linked to your checking. So if you need that money, it's going to take you a little time to get it. So you're not going to just willy-nilly spend it. So once you determine the amount to save, you open your high yield savings account, you want to review your budget to see what you can afford to put into that savings account every paycheck or every month and keep it there. So that's the big part, keeping it there. If you aggressively save and you can't pay your bills or you can't buy groceries, we're not doing what we need to be doing. You're going to end up using that savings. You're going to end up going deeper into credit card debt. We don't want that. So make sure you have your budget in place so you know what you truly can afford to put into savings and not touch it. And then reverse engineer hitting your savings goal. So let's say your goal is to save $1,000 before you aggressively tackle your debt. Well, $1,000, if you can save $250 a month, in 4 months, you'll hit the goal, right? So it's always nice to kind of put a time frame on it that's realistic for your situation so you know what to expect. And not to mention, if you come into extra money, if you get a bonus or a raise or whatever the case may be, you can always hit the goal faster, but at least we know what our timeline is and what our starting point is. And then every time money actually goes into savings, make sure you're tracking your progress. It's definitely motivating to do that. Now let's talk about if you are setting up a saving system and you don't have debt or you paid off all your debt. So your goal amount is probably going to change. In fact, it should. Your goal should be an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And I say 3 months if you are like completely stable in your job and you feel confident nothing crazy is going to happen. 6 months if you're a little bit worried or you're not 100% secure with your income, or you just really want that extra protection. But 3 to 6 months worth of expenses for an emergency fund is a great starting point for a goal. And then you would follow the same steps I walk through for a person that does have debt. You'll open a high yield savings account. You'll review your budget to determine your emergency fund number, monthly savings goal amount, and how much you can contribute to it. And then you reverse engineer your goal to get a deadline or a time frame for you to actually hit the goal. And track your progress every month until you reach the goal. And the good thing about this saving system, especially if you don't have debt, is you restart it every time there's a new savings goal. So every time you're ready to save for something, you are going to open a high yield savings account or open a specific savings account for the goal. You're going to review your budget to see what you can afford to put towards that goal. And then you're going to reverse engineer hitting that goal and make sure that you are very clear on what's a realistic time frame for you. And then you'll track your progress along the way. So this is something that you will rinse and repeat over and over and over. Are you loving this episode so far? Well, the money and life level up conversations never end in the City Girl Savings community. Visit citygirlsavings.com for instant access to resources that help you budget, level up your money mindset, and so much more. And make sure you stay up to date with CGS by following us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at City Girl Savings. The next money system to set up before the year ends is a debt payoff system. Now, obviously, if you are debt-free, you don't have any debt, this doesn't apply, but that's not the case for quite a few of us. So let's talk about your debt payoff system. Right now, interest rates on debt are incredibly high. At the time of me recording this episode, the Fed actually just cut interest rates by 0.5 percentage point, but still, interest rates are very high for credit cards and personal loan debt, even mortgages. Like, it's astronomical. So if you have credit cards or personal loan debt, or you're paying high interest debt, you'll definitely want a system in place to pay it off. So the first starting point for your debt payoff system is to organize your debt to get a full picture of what your debt situation looks like. And I recommend creating a spreadsheet. Love a good spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, you're going to have the debt's name, the type of debt. So the debt name could be Capital One credit card, the type of debt, credit card, the balance due, the interest rate, the minimum payment, and the due date. These are the most important pieces of information we'll need for each debt to make sure that you are never missing a payment. You know how much it's costing you. You know what that minimum payment is, so we can include it in your budget. We need all of that information. Once you have that, I want you to identify which debt will be tackled first. So you can leverage a debt payoff strategy like the snowball method or the avalanche method, right? There are different ways of going about doing it. I personally recommend the snowball method. I think if you have a debt payoff strategy like the snowball method, it's much more effective than putting extra money to all of your debts at the same time. So let me break down the snowball method just in case you're not aware. The snowball method basically says that you take the lowest balance debt that you have, you put all your extra money into paying off that debt while paying the minimums on everything else. And then once that debt is paid off, you take the extra money you're putting towards that debt plus that debt's minimum payment, and you move on to the next one. So it's basically knocking out the lowest balance debt one by one by one. That's the snowball method. The avalanche method is when you focus on the highest interest rate first. So instead of worrying about the balance, you're focused on which debt is costing me the most in interest, and you send all of your extra money there while paying the minimums on everything else. I recommend the snowball method. It's the method I help my clients with just because paying off like the low hanging fruit, the lowest balance debt, like you're going to pay it off faster because it's the lowest balance. And that really gives you some momentum. Like once you get the first one, it's like, oh, I like this feeling. Let's move on to the next. And there's some momentum and excitement to keep going. So you have organized your debt. You have identified which debt you're going to tackle first. Then you're going to review your budget to determine how much more than the minimums can go towards debt. So again, we got to pay the minimums on everything. We cannot escape that because if we don't pay the minimums, we're getting late fees, we're getting reported late to the credit bureaus. Can't happen. So we got to pay the minimums. But you'll want to look at your budget to see how much more extra you can put towards debt on top of the minimums so we can actually start paying this debt off. Now, if you look at your budget and you realize that the number is small or non-existent, I want you to come up with a plan to make more or spend less so you can pay your debt off. Sending an extra $5 a month to debt is better than nothing, right? But if your interest rates are very high, it's not going to move the needle drastically. So we got to figure out how we can send so much more to your debt so you can pay it off faster. Minimum payments alone will not cut it. You will end up paying more off in the long run. So you really got to get creative with either making more money or cutting back certain things you don't really need temporarily, just so you can focus on paying off your debt. And then I want you to track your debt payoff progress with a spreadsheet or a coloring worksheet or any other tracking system. The point is to see your progress along the way so that you can leverage that as momentum to keep going, especially when things get tough. Trust me, they will. I've paid off debt multiple times, unfortunately, and sometimes it's a slow burn. The day-to-day grind of controlling your spending and budgeting and not using your credit cards, it's not always easy. So if you track your progress and see how far you've come, that can really help you stay motivated. The next money system to set up before the year ends is an investing system. Now, let me say, your investing systems should be on autopilot. It should be happening behind the scenes. There shouldn't be much manual effort on your end. Everything should be going business as usual. So if you're saving for retirement currently, you already have an investing system. So way to go, pat on the back, let's do this. If you're not currently saving for retirement, I want you to focus on getting that set up. And when you do start saving for retirement, make sure that at minimum, you are contributing to retirement what your employer will match. So a lot of companies match 3 to 5%. They match, a percentage of whatever you put in. Make sure you know what the match rate is and make it a point to contribute that to your retirement plan. And eventually, your goal would be to work up to contributing 10% of your income, but we can worry about that later. For now, get your contribution set up and contribute at least what your employer will match. And that will, if you're not already saving for retirement, that will impact your paycheck. So just make sure you're looking at your budget, you're making sure you can afford this change. And if you can't, see where you can cut back to help offset that difference. Because saving for retirement now, it's going to save you so much more in the future, and it's going to make you so much more in the future. So we definitely want to prioritize this. Now, that's like the retirement investing system you can set up. And that really happens on its own. Once it's set up, they take the money out of your paycheck, it's invested and just grows business as usual. The next investing system that you can set up is just a general investing. And this is ideal for someone with no debt. Investing is wonderful. The compounding growth over the long term is unmatched. However, the average historical rate of return for investments over the long haul is like 8 to 12%. Credit card interest rates are like 27%. So it does not make sense for you to be paying credit card interest and investing in a general investment account. It's just not financially wise. So make sure your debt is paid off before you start investing outside of retirement. Now, if you are ready to start investing outside of retirement, open a brokerage account. So you can open one with Vanguard, Robinhood, Betterment, Schwab. Does not matter which one you go with, okay? I know all the options can make it hard for you to pick and therefore hard for you to take action. Just pick one, see how it goes. If you don't like it, you can always switch, okay? The point is we just need to get going. So open your brokerage account, review your budget to see how much can be safely invested. Here's the thing with investing. When we invest our money, the goal is not to touch it in the short term, okay? The goal is for long-term growth and gains. So if you are not comfortable not seeing this money for quite some time, do not invest it. So that's why you want to look at your budget to make sure you know what you can safely invest. You won't miss that amount. Your bills are still being paid, you're spending, everything happens business as usual. Once you've decided on that number, set up auto transfers into your brokerage account on a regular cadence that purchase ETFs or exchange traded funds. This is called dollar cost averaging. No matter where you're at, you're buying shares at whatever the current price is. So if the market is down, you're buying those shares at a discount. If the market is up, you're paying a premium, but it all evens out. Dollar cost averaging and averages out. And if you need a fund to get started, I recommend SPYG. It is an ETF that basically tracks the S&P 500, which is like the top 500 companies in the US. Great starting point, start there. Once a year, or even when you review your budget monthly, review your investment amount. See if you can increase the automatic transfer amount. Like if you're making more money, you should be able to invest more. The final money system to set up before the year ends is a system for financial growth. So what is your plan for continuing your financial growth and expanding your financial knowledge? Will you read books once a month? Will you listen to podcasts? Will you read newspapers? How often will you do this? How often will you consume that content? Will you work with a financial coach? Will you get a financial advisor? At what point will you seek guidance from someone else? So this is obviously not as technical as the other 4 systems I came across, but it's just as important because we cannot be staying stagnant. We cannot just be staying the same, like moving business as usual. There should always be growth and level up. So I really want you to think about how you plan to grow financially in terms of numbers, but also in terms of your financial knowledge. The more you know, the more actions you can take, the better decisions you can make. So set goals to read, a finance book once a month or listen to podcasts. The Wall Street Journal is a fantastic resource. So make sure you have a system for expanding your financial knowledge and expanding your wealth, and you will be well taken care of. So no matter where you are in your financial journey, each of the money systems I walked you through today can have a huge impact. Make it a point to get these systems set up before the new year. That way you're already ready with a solid routine in place that can be expanded on as the year goes by. But I do want to add, if the new year is passed, whenever you are listening to this episode, get your money system set up. Better late than never. Doesn't matter. The fact is, it just needs to be set up. So good luck with setting up your money systems. And don't forget, this is what I do. If you need help with budgeting, saving, investing, paying off debt, request a call with me and let's talk about it. Visit citygirlsavings.com and you can learn so much more. Good luck with it. Thank you so much for letting me be the money coach in your ear today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the City Girl Savings Podcast and you feel empowered and motivated to take the next step in the journey to your dream life. Remember, if someone like me, a millennial who loves to travel, new experiences, and iced coffees can live a life they love on a budget, you can too.